Hey y'all, Patrick James, Cold Dead Hands, Black Coffee Perspectives, and now into the fray, and
John Double Tap Britton, Midnight Munchies, Food for Thought, Cold Dead Hands, and Into the Fray. And where are we going into the fray today, Pat?
well, for all of you that had the opportunity to see the Pence-Harris debate, we just wanted to do some highlighting and I guess bring out some truth bombs behind some of the answers,
Or lack thereof.
or lack thereof, last night. So without further ado, we're going to get started, and we're going to talk about, you want to talk, which ones are we going to talk about first? Because there are a few.
Well, I would say that probably the big moment of the night was Vice President Pence calling out Kamala Harris and Joe Biden on their failure to state a position on the packing of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I liked how that was a complete deflection, and she went in to explain what President Lincoln did, and I'm going to let John explain that. I'd like to, but I'm trying to share the time.
First of all, even the Washington Post has WAPO has put the fact check smackdown on Kamala. Here's just a few highlights. Now, first of all, she was correct. A seat did become open 27 days before the election.
And that's where the correctness ends.
It wasn't just any seat. It was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and the author of the majority opinion in Dred Scott that said, basically, black people can't become citizens.
It's kind of an important aspect when we think about what we said in the Declaration of Independence video.
Exactly.
All men are created equal.
So, just to put her use of Lincoln in perspective.
Yep.
Yes, he was in the middle of an election. He was also in the middle of a civil war.
Yeah, that's a little different. Of course, Trump's in the middle of a pandemic,
right?
So that could be viewed as being in the middle of a civil war with all the unrest and everything that's been caused and we've seen in the last 6 to 8 months. It might almost be the same thing.
Yeah.
Not quite as bad, I guess.
At that time, Sherman had just captured Atlanta, getting ready to march to the sea.
Getting ready to burn it to the ground.
But the key point that Kamala Harris left out was that Congress was not even in session at the time, so could not have confirmed a nominee had he nominated.
Right.
But the key is, why did he not nominate? Now, of course, Kamala Harris alleged that he wanted the people to weigh in the election and make their voice heard.
We heard Biden say that too.
And he is quoted as saying that he was waiting to receive expressions of public opinion from the country. But did that mean ballots? No. Because he got a flood of letters with recommendations for the nominee. Now, you also have to bear in mind, Lincoln, first Republican president, was in the middle of a civil war, in the middle of a campaign, and trying to hold together what was at the time a very fragile and viewed as radical Republican coalition. So these nominees, the names that were floated out there, were meant to help strengthen that coalition for the elections. He did eventually name a nominee. The day after Congress came back in session, the Senate, confirmed him the same day, and he took his seat as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court 9 days later.
Salmon Chase. Justice Salmon Chase.
So the real issue is, did the election have anything to do with it? No.
No.
He was replacing the author of Dred Scott.
What did play something in that is really a political chess move, because he dangled Salmon Chase. He dangled Chase in front of other politicians to gain their support, garner their support, and help him stump for his reelection.
Which Chase did.
Yes, absolutely. Chase was actually an opposer of Lincoln and opposed him frequently. And after that, well,
he was on the
all that
campaign
in a bag
trail.
of Doritos.
But the key factor here is whether he had won the election or not, he was not going to, if he lost, historians agree, he would have nominated and filled that seat because he was not going to let a Democrat fill the seat and replace a segregationist, racist Chief Justice with more of the same.
Or stack the bench.
Which was the question she was avoiding
And
when she
didn't.
brought all this up and misrepresented it.
So, all right. So the context here is, was her answer, the Wilford Brimley answer, the right thing to do? Was that the truth? Absolutely not. So what does she get on that? She gets a Pinocchio 1.
Oh, she gets a big Pinocchio.
All right, so that was a lie, and we've got several sources that say it's a lie. Now, what are we doing here with Into the Fray? Bringing truths. So y'all can check out that lie all you want to. It was a lie, and she lied right into the face of everybody she's asking to elect, her and Biden. And let's face it, there was more than one lie there.
And race came up a lot in that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, for example, you know, the allegation that Trump didn't denounce white supremacy.
Wah, wah, wah.
You know, the very fine people on both sides. Now, Pence answered that fairly well.
Yeah.
But, you know, Pence has support in that from none other than CNN's Chris Acosta,
Woo!
who tweeted at the time that, let's see, how did he word it?
Oh, I've got it right here because I do like to write these things down. So on October 1st, 20, he said Trump finally denounced
No.
white supremacy
Quote unquote, finally.
on the Hannity show. So, yeah, he finally did that. But what did he say in 2017?
He said,
Basically the same thing.
yep. After Trump publicly denounced white supremacy after the Charlottesville incident, he pointed out that he specifically called out the KKK and white supremacy
Absolutely.
and the evil of racism.
Yeah, he actually said that excluding these extremist groups, they misrepresented the honest people that were there in Charlottesville.
Who were on both sides of the issue of taking down the monument and renaming the park.
Absolutely.
There were very fine people on both sides of that argument.
And within their rights, it's a peaceful protest. That's what we have the ability to do. Peacefully assemble both sides of that coin and discuss what we think as a whole should be done, right? That's our right. But
You know, and let me say something real quick. You know, we all know that all politicians lie, right? The key factor is what they lie about.
Absolutely. It's what
Now-
are they lying about.
Now,
But
granted, Trump, everything is huge.
Yep.
Best ever. Everybody says I'm the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very self-aggrandizing. And yes, narcissism is a prerequisite for politics.
Absolutely. It certainly is. But the fact is, we can stand on the fact that President Trump is actually the first president to ever say that the KKK is a national hate group. Yes, President Trump did that.
And would be prosecuted as a domestic terrorist organization.
So I wonder what President Trump thinks about white supremacy.
He's made it quite clear, though you won't hear it on most media outlets.
Nope, you're not going to. So that, another Pinocchio Award, goes to Cruella Harris.
Cruella DeVille Harris?
Yep.
No,
That's,
Cruella DeVille.
that's what I said, Cruella.
You and that damn accent. But anyway,
All right, so that's two. That's two. Now, did Pence lie last night?
I can't put my finger on an outright lie,
No.
but he did dodge a few questions.
His mouth was moving, so it's likely that there was something that came out of his mouth that was a lie. Okay? I mean, it's highly likely.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact remains that, and I got to stop using fact all the time, but you know what? We're dropping truth bombs. and reality, I got to stop using reality. I noticed I did that a little too much too.
As Pence said last night, you're welcome to your own opinion, but not your own facts.
We have to look at what they're lying about, like John said. What are they lying about? And how does that affect us? So, lie number 3.
Let me see. Fracking,
Yep.
New Deal.
Fracking. Cruella Harris. I shouldn't make fun of her, but I don't like to say Kamala or Kamala or whatever else it is. So Harris. We'll just go with Harris that way. It doesn't sound like I'm misrepresenting her, although she is an attorney. And you know what Shakespeare said about all the attorneys. So she said that her and Joe Biden would not end fracking. Now, I'm not, even though I live in Texas, and Texas is a huge oil and gas industry. I mean, we're like bigger than most countries
Pretty
here in
much.
Texas. We
Yeah.
could probably
But then,
take care of our own without any problem and sell back to any of the other states that they wanted some of our stuff.
but then everything's bigger in Texas.
Absolutely, it sure is, like your ego. But I'm going to tell you right now, are they going to stop fracking? If they don't, she will alienate herself from her compadre, AOC, and the Climate Equity Act of 2019 that she co-authored.
Hashtag Green New Deal.
Green New Deal. The Green New Deal. Listen, I'm all for all alternative energy sourcing.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great thing. In fact, the reality is solar could work, but it'll only work if everybody has a solar system in their own home.
That's what I've said for years. I mean, until the grid is producing its own power, and basically you eliminate power producers, that's the only way that solar, wind will work.
Absolutely. Now, we said Green New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
We do agree with alternative sourcing. Do I think that an electric car is better than a fossil fueled car? Absolutely not. It will never be. And, you know, doing the research on it, it looks like the disposal sites for the batteries are taking a toll on the environment.
An environmental disaster.
But, you know, that just goes back to, hey, I'm going to protest the petroleum industry in a kayak made from petroleum-related products. That is the ultimate hypocrisy. Let's paddle that kayak right next to that big tanker and ooh.
Or you end up like California, where they say everybody has to drive an electric car, and then we're going to shut off the power.
Yeah, good luck with that too. I just want to point out with the Green New Deal, the first principle mentioned in the Green New Deal, climate change, fighting climate change by ending the use of fossil fuels. Fracking involves the use of fossil fuels.
Well, fracking produces the fossil fuels that are used, so yes,
It's related. No matter, you know, I don't need to get technical about it, but the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, fracking has to end if the Green New Deal is going to go through. Joe Biden said the Green New Deal is going to go through. I don't even know if he knows what the Green New Deal is.
It is listed on his website as a foundation for the Biden plan.
But did he actually read it? I'm not sure. But is that 3 now?
That's at least 3.
3 Pinocchios. that's at least 3 Pinocchios. So, you know, we can roll right through a whole host of other things.
Oh, taxes.
Yeah, taxes. That's a good one.
Repeal the Trump tax cuts, is a tax increase on people making less than $400,000. That's just the truth. It is. Now, you can say you're not going to raise taxes on anybody making under $400,000,
I bet you will.
but simply repealing that tax cut will do that. Now, this is where they get into the linguistic gymnastics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, they won't pass a bill raising the taxes, but they will repeal a bill or a law that indirectly results in the raising of taxes.
Well, I mean, I don't know all the medium household incomes here in the United States. I really don't, but I do realize that the price of everything is going up considerably. So our costs go up considerably. When our costs go up considerably, our wages go up considerably. And when those go up considerably in accordance with that, to maintain that balance of the economy, $400,000 income isn't as high as it used to be.
Nope.
Once upon a time, a $400,000 income, I can remember back in the 80s, man, somebody was making 400 grand in the 80s. They were legit on their way to ending the poverty in their life. 400 grand doesn't quite get you as far as it used to.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like the price of gas. You know, it continues to rise, and the pay doesn't continue to rise accordingly.
But we want to keep this short, so want to move on to something real quick. And this was a question that both of them dodged.
Oh, yeah.
Was on abortion.
Yep.
You know, Pence did not answer, what he would do in Indiana. Now, he did go on to elaborate on a previous point, which is a dodge, but it was also something that needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
Kamala did not answer hers either, but she does have positions on it.
Well, and we can look at it this way, okay? We know where Pence falls on that spectrum. He's made it pretty clear.
He's pro-life.
He's pro-life. Does that mean that he's not for a woman's rights, though?
No.
Absolutely not, and that's where they've got you hooked. See, Kamala Harris wants you to think she's all about the woman and the woman's right, her reproductive rights. I get that.
Right, to do her choice to do with what she will with her body.
Absolutely, that's
ignoring
that's
the
what she
science
says.
that there's another body completely genetically different involved, but
I
body.
can quote her response from the podium when she was actually running for president, the nomination of president.
Well, she's still running for president, but
That's another topic for a moment.
Yep.
States that have a history of passing legislation that is designed to prevent or limit a woman's access to reproductive health care, that those laws have to come before my Department of Justice for a review and approval. And until we determine that they are constitutional, they will not take effect. So what does Harris want to do?
she wants to codify abortion in federal law.
She wants to codify Roe v. Wade. What
Now-
does that do? I mean, I know there's a lot of people. Oh, well, what is codify? I mean, I had to look up a little bit of it too, although I understand it. As she's basically wanting to make it a federal law that the states can't choose what they want to do. So she's really taking away what you want in turn for what the federal government wants.
So you can break it down this way. The federal government has the power to pass federal law pursuant to the Constitution. The Roe v. Wade ruling ruled abortion as constitutional, a woman's right. Questionable ruling, split decision,
Yep.
but they want to use terms like settled law. Well, Dred Scott was settled law,
Yeah.
going back to our beginning of this conversation. So it wasn't passed through the legislature, but she wants to codify it through regulation built upon the foundation of Roe. So that's what are we up to? 4 or 5 Pinocchios?
Shoot, that's 5 or 6. I kind of, we're kind of, we've told you that we're technically challenged. So if there's anybody out there in listening land who ever wants to just lend a hand and show us how to do certain things, I'd love to have a picture back here of all the expressions on that lady's face last night.
Oh my goodness.
Holy moly, she could morph and change that facial expression to match everything that went on from from Pence, absolutely catching her in bold-faced lies.
The condescension,
Yeah.
the smugness, the defensiveness when he had her on the ropes, it was all there on her face.
If she were talking to another woman and had used those facial expressions in a conversation, she might have got her butt whooped. I'm just saying, I mean, some of the women I know anyways would not have stood for that kind of facial expression
But
during a conversation.
all right.
All right, so we've gotten about 5 Pinocchios,
Yeah.
at least.
Oh, and believe me, there's so much more.
There's so much more. There's so much more to talk about with her stance on abortion. But, you know, whether you believe that life begins at conception and the reality is that science has already determined that, because conception is the cellular level. When 2 cells come together and form one, that's science, guys. I mean, it's science. And that becomes a life. Now, however we want to stand on that, whatever your opinions are on that, I don't want to take away the rights of a woman. I think her rights need to be used a little more judiciously and prior to and using birth control.
Oh yeah, there is a place for choice in the equation, but it is before impregnation.
Well, and I'll even go as far to say that I'm okay with the morning after pill, because at that point it really is now between you and your God, however you believe.
And in that case, it's more of a Schrodinger's cat situation. You don't know you are, you don't know you aren't, but just in case.
Yeah.
And you know, there are instances where choice doesn't apply. Rape, incest, things
Absolutely.
like
Hey,
Now-
and we get it, we understand it, and a woman should have a right to do a lot of things, but one of the things I look at here, and I think to myself, how can you look at this any other way? If a pregnant woman is murdered, it's a double homicide. But yet, that child's not recognized in the abortion stages. So, I mean, how do you justify double homicide with a murder,
but not with an abortion.
but abortion isn't murder?
Well, and
Somebody please step up and explain that to me, because I don't get it. I don't get that.
let me try to give you a little perspective on that.
Okay.
And again, going back to the start of this video, the Chief Justice who wrote the opinion on Dred Scott, you know, the ruling was that basically black people weren't people. They weren't eligible to become citizens. They were quote unquote subhuman.
Yeah. Women too. I mean, let's face it.
Now-
Not quite as subhuman.
Now that's going back, you know, a couple centuries. You know, go back a few decades, and you see the same thing with the Nazis. You know, they were murdering Jews because they didn't consider Jews as human beings.
Yeah.
And now we're into the abortion debate. You know, it's not murder if you're killing something that's subhuman. You know, it's not murder if you run over a dog in the street. It's not murder if you euthanize an animal, but for some reason people are different. Because we're people.
Yeah.
You know, at least most of us look at all of us as people. Some people don't look at all of us as people. Whether it be because of the color of their skin, their religion, or the fact that they haven't quite made it into the world out of their mama's womb yet.
And we can drill that right down to all people.
Yeah. Men, people,
Yep.
are created equal.
Yep.
Endowed by their creator.
Created equal. Created. I still have to say that I still think that the Supreme Court should rule on when life begins. I mean, if they use science in that, if they use our founders' tenets to decide that, then creation would have to be a created, and the cellular level is the created. And if they did that, there'd be no question. And they could still stand on a woman's rights. Hey, who has a right? If there's a host and that host could kill, I mean, if a woman has a baby in her side of her and it's threatening her life, she has the right to decide. My sister did.
That's self-defense.
My sister had MS, was told that, you know, hey, you have MS, you're in a wheelchair, you can't have this kid. This kid's going to be born with deformities, it's going to be I mean, a plethora of reasons why she needed to abort that baby. She said, absolutely not, it's my decision, and I'm going to have that kid. And my nephew is an extremely healthy 30-something, 37, and very productive, absolutely no deformities. So, you know what? Yes, a woman has that choice. She absolutely does. In a medical condition, I absolutely agree, and there are other extenuating circumstances that I could understand that. But not just as a form of birth control.
Nope.
I can't wrap my brain around it.
And again, it comes back to responsibility, personal responsibility.
Now
like I said, you have the choice of engaging in the act that leads to procreation.
Yep.
Sometimes not, but generally speaking.
Yeah. I mean, there are times, there's no doubt that there are instances when you didn't have a choice. I get it. I understand it. Do I know what it's like to be a woman? Absolutely not. Wouldn't even try to begin to understand that. I'm actually probably pretty good with the fact that I'm not. I like being a man.
And men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and they communicate about that well.
Amen. You know, we could have said a whole lot more on taxes, her stances on taxes, but I want to tell you something. You can go and read all of her. I did the same thing. Her stances on taxes, and she's raising. Trust me, she's raising, and she's raising for everybody across the board. But she's also raising for corporations, and I'm going to tell you what, being a corporation, running a business, I'm affected by that too, and my income does not match some of the mega corporations, but I'm going to pay at the same rate. So what effectively will she do?
Kill small business.
Destroy small businesses that built this country. She's not giving us any chance to grow. She's giving the mega corporations the chance to grow, because guess what? They don't care. They've got 100 lawyers on staff. Y'all said it. Trump paid $750 a year.
Yeah, he's got good attorneys, good accountants.
You know, we didn't think about the $31 million he paid in all of his business taxes. No, he used the tax code. I can't afford that. So it at the end of the day will kill all small businesses, and you'll be able to shop. What was that? What was that movie? Sandra Bullock, Taco Bell. That's all you're gonna have. That's your choice.
Oh,
that corpse.
Yep.
That's what you'll have. So check out her stances on taxes, because I promise you, they're not what she's saying. That was another Pinocchio. I want to mention one more thing about her before we close out, because they're trust me, we could say a whole lot, but you know, as a senator, her voting record.
Before you get to that, I just wanted to say one thing real quick. Yeah, she was recognized as the most liberal senator.
Yes.
I take issue with the use of the word liberal.
Yeah.
She was the most far left senator.
We're talking Bernie Sanders out there on the socialism spectrum.
To the left of a avowed socialist Democrat.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, her voting record, you can look at her voting record. 25.6%. She missed. She missed voting 25.6% of the time. Now, a lot of you guys are saying, well, 25.6% of the time. Hey, that's what a C. The average median for a senator to miss on voting is 1.8%. Lifetime records of senators currently serving. Lifetime. 1.8%. But she was busy making herself look better.
Yeah, well, when she was running for president.
Yeah.
Who cares about the day job when you're running for president, right?
Exactly. Do you want a president? And yes, that's a legit question. In January, we are going to swear in the oldest sitting president of all time. It doesn't matter who wins this. So the legitimacy of a vice president taking over midterm, anytime within that, I mean, in the case of a Joe Biden being elected, it will probably happen minutes after his swearing. And that's, hey, 47 years in politics, it's time to hang up your hat. Speaking of hat, we got ours.
And on that topic, just a second.
Yep.
You know, one of the stupidest questions asked by the moderator
Oh my gosh.
was the question of, have you had the discussion with these older guys about what happens in disability? That's been established for years. Chain of succession. Acting president on the part of the vice president if the president is... That's all settled.
Yep.
Been there, done that.
Don't have to actually talk about, hey man, you know what? If I get elected and I die,
You going to take over
you're
for
going
me?
to take over? Chain of command. We talk about these things, and yeah, they're elderly. Hey, they could live a lot more life. There's no doubt. I mean, and they could be the minimum requirement. What's the minimum requirement? 46 for president?
35.
35. Oh, see, I was way off. 11 years. It should be 46, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. The reality.
There you
The
go.
reality at 35 is you can die just as quickly and easily. But we need to be looking at the fact that, are we just voting for a president on the ticket, or are we voting to ensure that the vice president is the right person to take over the job?
And that's a key point in this debate. I mean, even though it was a stupid question, those protocols are already in place.
Right.
But the age of the primary presidential candidates does make the vice president's position more crucial than usual. Now, watching that debate, who looked more presidential? Was it Miss Scowl and laugh and sneer and snicker? Or, now, Mike Pence is a very genteel guy.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's
composed.
He's soft-spoken. He's composed. You know, he is the antithesis of Trump
Yeah,
in
no
style,
doubt.
in style and personality.
Yep.
But
Is he equipped to run the country?
oh yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
his takedown of Kamala Harris last night was brutal.
It was epic.
But
It was in genteel fashion, though.
but most people won't appreciate the full ramification of that smackdown
because it was so subtle.
because of his manner. Yeah.
It was very subtle, but he put her in positions. I mean, you can look at the facial expressions and look at her face and say, oh, wow, you were just caught.
Yeah.
You were just caught in a bold-faced lie. That's what she was. And there, again, there's so many more. And we didn't even get into Pence's background or record, but we don't really have to. He's been vice president for 4 years, and there's plenty to look back on. But Harris, you can look back on. She is a lawyer. She's a lawyer first. She's about herself, and she's about making herself look better. And that boiled down to her position as an AG in California when the California Supreme Court said, you need to reduce the overcrowding and population in our prison systems because, hey, we got 50 guys to a crapper here. 50 guys to one toilet.
Now, you notice when she listed off her accomplishments, every one of her accomplishments involved her being the first woman of color, second black woman in Senate. Every accomplishment she listed off was centered on things that she had absolutely no control over.
Right. She was born the way she was born, a woman of color. That's it. Now, let's look at your work ethic and your history. And the fact of the matter is, she argued, she denied, she wouldn't actually agree with the Supreme Court ruling in California, which, hey, as an AG, you have the right to say, I don't like this. But when you exercise that right, then you have to produce the chain of taking it further and having it changed by the federal Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? I am correct. Thank you for verifying that I am correct. That she needed to show a progression, and she didn't. And she didn't release any of her prisoners, or very few from what I understand, because the reduction was nowhere close what the state said she needed to get to. And they weren't asking for violent offenders to be released. But let COVID come in the door.
And they can't let them out fast enough.
Oh, it's like a revolving door now. Shoot.
But
you were
she-
a rapist 10 years ago, hit the road, man.
But she did not want that on her record
Exactly. She
because
wanted
of
to make
her
herself
aspirations.
look better for a presidential run to get to the highest power in the land. That's what she wanted. She knew the time was right based upon the fact of the natural attributes that she was born with. A woman of color.
But when you set aside those natural born attributes, her actual accomplishments are, well, her and Joe Biden. Joe Biden passed the 94 crime bill. She couldn't lock him up fast enough.
Right.
That's there. That's
Yep.
fact.
It is. So, I mean, all we're saying is we're bringing some truth here to let the cream rise to the top on that debate last night. Yeah, I know that Pence had a fly on his head.
Yeah, we've had one buzzing around here,
Yep.
if anybody's noticed.
Listen, if all you could sit down and point out was that Pence had a fly on his head, then you need to take a real hard look at what you're voting for and why you're voting that way. Because if you're voting purely because you hate one person so much that you will forego quality workmanship,
Honesty.
honesty and integrity, and a desire to restore a country back to its founders' tenets, yeah, man, there's probably drugs for you that you could take prescribed. I know that California has legalized the use of marijuana, so you might want to smoke a big old hooter and take a chill pill, because the reality is the Trump derangement syndrome, yes, we don't like to use those words very often, but the absolute truth behind that is true.
It's very real.
It's very real. People, their arguments are, well, he just is a mean guy, he's a bully, he's a this, he's a that, he tweets this, he tweets that. Hey, I get it.
And don't get me wrong. He's told some whoppers.
But I'm not going to stand behind him. I mean, the bump stock ban, it happened on his watch. But I'm going to tell you real quickly what that was about. Trump is a guy who, I don't know everything. He's not going to tell you he doesn't know everything, but he's that guy. So he's going to rely on somebody who knows more. What did he do? He went to the NRA, he asked the NRA guys at the ILA, hey, what should we do about this? And what did they do? They put it in the hands of the ATF. So what they virtually did was take a bump stock, a chicken out of the coop, and handed it to the fox and said, here, have this. It's a sacrificial lamb. Nobody cares about the bump stock. It wasn't that we cared about the bump stock. It's a piece of plastic. It was a fun toy. We don't want any more gun control legislation, period. None. And Trump heard our voices, the collective people of gun owners. He heard how much we disliked that. Just like red flag law.
Yeah.
He mentioned it. He mentioned taking away due process, although that was taken completely out of context by our media and twisted on him. But he did mention red flag laws. And we haven't heard not one more thing from him, and there's not been anything that's done about red flag laws. But our gun rights guys, man, they're going crazy.
Bump stocks and red flags. Bump stocks and red flags.
Yep. That's the only things they got. And the reality is, he mentioned them and then listened to us, which is what a politician should be doing.
Well, no, he listened to the NRA first and got it wrong.
And
then he listened to
learned.
us.
He learned.
And that's what you want a politician to do.
You
Listen
want-
to the people,
Yep.
not the special interests, and learn from their mistakes.
That's exactly right. So, there were a lot of lies there. We've even got more that we could go on with, but we're going to close this out. And I want to close it out with quotes. So, John, tell us what one of our founders had to say about honesty and integrity.
Thomas Paine, one of my favorites, and in his book, The American Crisis, from 1777,
1777.
he wrote, "We fight not to enslave, but to set a country free." and to make room upon the earth for honest men to live in.
Honest men.
And that is literally what this country was founded on. It was founded on making a place for honest, self-reliant, personally responsible, moral, religious people to live their lives unencumbered by an oppressive government.
Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine. What a great author. I mean, really, he was. If you haven't read some of his works, you need to. Common Sense.
Yep.
Hey, that was the guy you were forgetting to use as the namesake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when you so graciously plugged my book and I forgot the name of the founder who I based it on, which was, for the record, Thomas Paine.
Thomas Paine.
Common Sense.
Yep. And did he have anything in actually doing constitutional style stuff? Did he actually write? Did he pen? Did he decide? Was he part of the team?
Oh, you mean as far as not just a founder, but a framer of the Constitution or Declaration?
Yep.
No,
Nope.
he was more of a thought leader.
He
Oh,
shaped
Now,
a lot of their minds.
he also was a very controversial thought leader.
He was. In fact, Madison chastised him, oh my gosh, countless times.
Well, him and Adams didn't get along real well either.
Absolutely.
Based largely on their views on religion.
Right. Age of Reason. But you know what? Madison did get him out of prison. On Jefferson's bequest.
Mm-hmm.
But he did see the reality of that. And one of the things I will recommend, because this is something I do, is I go and I look at our founders as they aged and I try and read their letters, because it's very enlightening.
The early versus the latter.
It is very enlightening to see that experience being tempered from the young man to the old man, and what they did wrong, what they said wrong, what they wrote wrong, and what they think they should have done differently. It is enlightening. So we're going to end this because it's already longer than we intended it to be, because it was only supposed to be a short video.
But we had so much material.
There was. In fact, like we said, the plague doctor mask would not hide her nose from last night. So again, I'm going to end it the way I like to end it, with a verse from that book that a lot of you don't like us to talk about and feel has no place in government. We will contend that and show more. But from Luke 16:10, one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. It's a pretty impactful verse, and is the words of our Christ as they were spoken and translated for us to read by Luke, who was a thinking man, doctor.
And, it's really quite poignant in light of last night's debate.
Absolutely.
Because, at least for me, it was quite clear who on the stage was faithful and who on the stage was dishonest.
It's also quite telling when you look at their records from the past that when they had very little, they squandered and dishonestly handled that very little.
For political gain.
Absolutely, for political gain. Do or should the American people trust her with a lot? I mean, we're talking about the possibility of being the supreme commander in chief.
And in all honesty, highly likely given the age of the presidential candidates.
Absolutely. So that's the things you need to take away from this video. I know it was longer than we wanted to go. We're going to try and make them more concise and shorten them down a bit, but we appreciate you that do follow it all the way to the end, because you'll get the little tidbits and nuggets of gold that we try and save for the end. So we're going to sign out for today. Go check these things out on Google. Google them for yourself. Don't take the most popular. That's the one that Google wants you to read. It's at the top. It's probably the top 10. The whole page probably is going to be the most popular.
Take the road less traveled. Do some digging. Do your research. You know, get into the fray.
Well, you know, and that's the fact. Get into the fray. But, you know, my dad used to tell me this all the time, and I like to go back to Red Hughes and talk about what Red used to say. If you want the truth, it's probably buried in the middle somewhere. You know, and as we like to say, if you want peace,
Prepare for war.
see y'all.